Welcome to Crosscut. I'm your co-host Josh.
I'm your other co-host, Chris.
So today on Crosscut, we are
Josh, you got a spider on your screen.
okay, Chris. I got this. Well, I'm gonna have to clean that up. Do
Uh,
do 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 do. Welcome back to Crosscut. As we said in that opening, I am your co-host Josh.
I'm your other co-host, Chris.
We are continuing, as we mentioned last week, this Jeff Daniels train of 90s thrill rides. This time it's technically a comedy, but a different kind of comedy that's not Dumb and Dumber. This is comedy, horror, suspense, I would call it. We are watching the 1990, I don't know if I call it classic, but definitely a movie I think a lot of people that grew up in our era are familiar with, Arachnophobia.
Yeah, Arachnophobia.
Let's talk about some spiders. My introduction to this movie, because I always have an intro to some type of movie, I always have some sort of backstory, and of course I have one to this. I have not seen this movie probably in about 25 years, at least.
Whoa.
It's been a while. So I remember watching this movie growing up in the 90s, which is probably the last time I saw it. And I remember watching it on either TBS or TNT, and I want to say it was TBS. And this is back in the day, and I don't know if you remember this. We might have talked about this before. Back in the 90s, early 2000s, TBS used to do this thing called Dinner and a Movie. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't actually.
Okay, so for anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about, Dinner and a Movie is when TBS would play a movie, and in between commercial breaks, there'd be like two live hosts, and it would be like a cooking show. I remember, I specifically have a memory watching Arachnophobia in the 90s on TBS for Dinner and a Movie, and whatever the two hosts were, I remember them talking about the stuff, in between the breaks, and I don't remember what they were making, but yeah, Dinner and a Movie, that's a nostalgia hit right there. And funny I bring that up because Dinner and a Movie is actually coming back. I don't know to what extent. Jason Biggs is going to be one of the co-hosts, apparently. I don't know if this is going to be like TBS again, or if it's going to be like a Max thing, TNT. I have no idea. But anyways, I remember watching this movie in the 90s. Dinner and a Movie, TBS. Chris, what about you?
Well, actually, the first time I ever watched Arachnophobia was because I went to that movie stop store when it was going out, and I was like, this looks interesting. So I just grabbed it randomly, like, I'm just gonna buy it and see if I like it. And I think that same day I put it on, and I'm thinking to myself, Arachnophobia, I get it. It wasn't really getting to me as much, except for one scene that always gets me now. It's when one of the spiders gets into the coach's family house, and it's in the shower scene, which right on the face and just slides down everywhere. Like,
are you all right?
This movie, it's not that scary, but it definitely plays on that creep factor.
it does.
Like when I was watching this last night, there's a couple times where you feel that little tingle on the back of the neck, or maybe the hair on and you just go, ooh, what was that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I'll admit though that by the end of the movie, I was scratching, like, okay,
yes,
around here.
I think that's what the idea is for this movie. Like when you're sitting in like that dark movie theater in 1990, and you just kind of feel that little something while you're watching this movie, you're gonna go, ooh. But I think that's just like the ultimate fear of spiders, especially the shower scene, because I feel like that's the most iconic place to find a spider. It's always going to be in like your shower in like the little corner. It's always going to be sitting there. And I had the biggest fear of spiders as a kid. It didn't matter how big they were. If even it was like the little teeniest, tiniest spider, I would freak out. I would absolutely freeze. I could not go in that same room if there was a spider in that room. Now as an adult, I'm much better. I'm actually a lot more friendlier with like little spiders, to the point where I'll even like let them like crawl in my hand and stuff like that.
Oh, I can't do that.
Yeah, I don't mind it actually. Like little baby spiders, that's okay. But if it becomes like a daddy long leg, ooh, I still don't know if I can. I don't know if I can mess
Mm-mm,
with that.
mm-mm.
This
I
movie
cannot
definitely
try.
plays. I mean, that is a truly rational fear, arachnophobia.
Yeah,
I know there's other people that have it way worse, and that's where our main character in this movie, Jeff Daniels, comes into play because he
is
has
definitely afraid.
arachnophobia.
Honey, we're in the living room. We need you to kill a spider.
He has this trauma from when he was a kid, which I was kind of thinking the main character, he didn't need to have a backstory. I think you could just have a fear of spiders and people would
Yeah.
get it. But I think it also makes sense at times why they wanted to give him a little bit of like a story, even though it doesn't make, I don't know, like, would you remember that if you were two? Like, really?
Okay, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like, yeah, you really can't remember anything when you're two. But I don't mind the backstory of it.
To
Like,
to give it something, right? Just a
right,
little something there.
the story would have been better if it was like maybe when he was 4 or 5 and it's
Yeah,
just sleeping
a
in
little bit
bed.
older. Or just
Yeah.
again, you don't even need to have that. You could just be like, he just is afraid of like. There's no rational reason, or there's no actual reason why you're just afraid of it. I think that's what a lot of phobias are. There's no we can't determine why you're afraid of these
It just
things,
happens.
and it just
Yeah.
happens. And I think that would have been fine if that was just the case. But they wanted to give him a little bit of story, and it doesn't really work. But okay, sure, why
You know,
not?
it's funny that I recently saw one of those pop-up books and it's all about phobias.
Hmm.
And one of them was arachnophobia.
Oh, okay.
And you open it up and it pops up a big spider at you.
Oh,
Uh,
how fun.
oh, because every phobia they did some 3D effect to it. So when you pop it open, it has that. Even vertigo, and it's like you're seen on top of a building.
What kind of evil, sick person made this book? Anyways, all right. So this movie opens, and we are in South America. We're in Venezuela for a pretty extended scene. Because I've not seen this movie in a while, I remembered certain parts, and I knew the movie opened this way, but I didn't think it went on for this long. And for some reason, I had this fake memory of thinking that it was the British doctor that dies in the beginning. I don't know why I thought that. I remember there was a British guy in the beginning, and I remember somebody
Yeah,
died, and I thought it was him. And it ends up not being him. It ends up being this other person, which kind of kicks off everything.
the
I
guitar.
wanted to ask you, did the opening scene, and this kind of predates what I'm about to reference, did this kind of remind you of Jurassic Park?
Kind of.
Yeah, I don't know, just
Yeah,
like certain moments. I'm like, and I know this was like Steven Spielberg was the executive producer on this movie.
uh,
The whole like jungle desert or the whole jungle forest kind of feel to it. I don't know. I just like when I was watching, I was getting like weird Jurassic Park vibes, oddly enough, even though this movie was 3 years before that. But anyways, yeah. So we have a character who ends up getting bit, and they kind of play it off. Well, he already had the flu going into that. So they think
right.
everything has some sort of explanation anytime a character dies, right? We have this big ass giant spider
Yep.
puppet.
Still, that thing is huge.
It was humongous, and it gets into this like wooden coffin where our character is basically
Right.
being shipped back to America. He's shipped to this town called, what was it called, Cania or something like that.
Yeah, Canyon.
I think you're right. It was like Kanaya or something like that.
Right. Either way.
Fictional town, small town America.
Yeah.
And this is when we're introduced to our main characters. Mostly, this is Jeff Daniels and his family.
Yeah.
Jeff
Yeah.
Daniels is a doctor, and they lived in San Francisco. They are moving to a small town. I think they get away from the big city. Also, I think his wife got fired or something. They kind of allude
No,
to.
I think they
Well, she mentioned severance at some point, so I don't know
maybe.
what she was like a stockbroker. So I'm not sure what that's all
She was an
about.
accountant, wasn't she?
He says stockbroker at the party.
Oh, okay.
So I really don't know. I mean, that's what I
Either way.
heard. But either way, she's not working. She's like does a lot of photography on the side.
Right.
And Jeff Daniels is the doctor. He's sort of the breadwinner at this point. And the whole reason they're moving here is because he's expected to take over this
The
job
town
from
doctor,
the town doctor, from this old fart who ends up not giving it to him. And this guy
Yeah.
sucked, man. This guy was an asshole.
Pretty much. I mean, you're set to retire. You're gonna hand off the torch. Like, maybe not. Like,
If
I don't
I
care
was the
about you.
wife and I was at that party, how would you not like chastise that guy to be like, we up and moved here because of a promise that you gave us, and now my husband is basically has one patient. I don't know. I would have been super pissed. You up and moved to a town because of of what you thought was guaranteed. And
Mhm.
they said they had like went to like 15 other towns or something like that.
Mhm.
This goes into the whole story of these people start to die, and of course, this old doctor is going to get knocked off at some point because then it's going to be Jeff Daniels has to be the doctor.
Right.
But yeah, going back to my original point, so there's not a ton of deaths in this movie, but we kind of see this original character that got killed from the Venezuela scene, and his
Right.
body is just like like it's just like sucked dry, and it's pretty
Yep.
gruesome looking actually.
I don't know. I didn't remember if they actually showed the like body and like, oh wow.
Yeah, I kind of liked how it looked pretty like because this movie it's hard to kind of keep up the like chill factor throughout because it seemed like every other scene they're always cutting that little spider crawling because they got to give it some thrills, right?
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
want to make it a little gruesome as well, and I thought that was like a pretty good looking
I think
gnarly.
pretty much the only time you really see
It
something
is
like
yeah, it is the only time. But, well, because it makes sense because that's like the king spider or whatever they call him,
right,
and he's been in that thing for so long he had to just keep sucking him dry. So,
right, right.
and then we see this crow picks up the spider, flies it to this little farmhouse where the crow ends up getting killed, and that's where we're introduced to our family. Jeff
Yep.
Daniels, the doctor. The only things we know about him is he's a doctor, he's afraid of spiders, and he loves wine.
Right. The wine.
Which
That's
I
right.
love how that does come back at some point.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned before, he's supposed to take over for this old doctor, and the guy decides he doesn't want to retire. So now they're kind of screwed. He has to open up his own practice. He has one patient, this nice woman who just happens to live next door to him. She even goes as far as throwing him a party. And you know what? I love this lady. She was so nice.
Oh
And I
yeah.
felt so bad that she was essentially our second victim in this movie. Like,
Yeah, no, I kind
30 to 35 minutes in because she was really nice. But that's really when, Jeff Daniels goes over to the house because they wanted to thank her for throwing that party. And she's laying there on the floor. And man, when you get bit by these spiders, you have seconds to live. Like it's not even one of those
literally.
things where it's like, hey, let's try. Like you're pretty much like done. And when I like as a kid, when I watched this movie, it did affect me that way. Like thinking like if I got bit by a spider, like I was scared. Like I don't know about you, but would you ever do the thing where you put the knee high socks on and you would tuck your pants into the socks just in case nothing would ever like crawl up your leg?
I didn't do that, no.
Yeah. That was definitely like a thing that I did when I was like a kid, especially because of this movie. Like it kind of got you that
Mhm.
way, where like, oh, I didn't want any spiders to be like crawling up my legs, so I would. And I
Yeah.
don't know about them, but like they don't even wear gloves. Some of them don't even wear gloves at any point when they're trying to go find these spiders. So like, man, I would be
Yeah,
like
I saw
suiting up.
I I realized that too, especially when they go to the lady's house to find a spider, and the deputy's just like looking in the mugs with his bare hands. It's like,
Yeah, that was the scene I was thinking of when he's doing the bear. That deputy was kind of a doofus. And going
yeah,
back to Dinner in a Movie from the 90s, I can't believe I still remember this over 25 years later. That deputy has a death scene that's a deleted scene from the movie, which I remember they show in Dinner in a Movie from like the
oh,
90s. Because I think that actor was like on there as like a guest star. I think that was another thing they used to do. They would bring like a person from the movie on and talk about the
mhm,
movie. If you actually notice, his final scene is at the barn with the doctor, and the doctor's like,
mhm.
go get the people and bring them back. And then you
Right,
never see him again.
right.
He actually had another scene where he's driving to them and there's a spider in his cop car that comes down and gets him, but that was a deleted scene. And I only know that because of Dinner in a Movie from the 90s watching Arachnophobia.
I kind of want to see that scene. That sounds like a cool scene. Just going.
Yeah. So that was like his death scene, but I guess they ultimately cut it out. But yeah, actually, you don't actually see him again after he leaves. That's pretty much it.
I didn't pay
So
attention to that until you just said it.
but anyway, so this nice old lady next door dies. Of course, there's like a reasoning behind it because she stopped taking these pills for her blood levels or cholesterol or something like that.
I think it was her blood sugar. Yeah,
Blood
something like
sugar,
that.
yeah. So
Uh,
that's why
yeah.
they're thinking that she died.
Right, but like it's all based on the old doctor's
The old doctors, yes.
theory. You know,
And
like
then we
I'm gonna make sure you never work in this town again, kind of thing. Like
right.
for for mal
And of course, Jeff Daniels has
malpractice.
the logistical reasoning. Where he said he gives him the whole spiel. He's like,
Right,
I know I what I did wasn't wrong. So the next person we see get killed is this high school football player. The
Right.
spider crawls into his helmet, and I'm just like, ooh. Ugh. And of course, there's another reasoning. He gets tackled pretty hard right before he gets bit, and then he gets hit like seconds later, like really
Right.
hard. So I think people thought he was having some sort of something
Like a
from that hit.
injury or something
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And now people are starting to get picked off. They're calling Jeff Daniels Dr. Death.
Or he
And
just
this is
happens to
what
be there
he
every
happens to be
time.
there every time. Yeah. And then this is where the old doctor finally gets it. He gets it in the shoe, gets bit on the foot, and he
Mhm.
dies. And I
Right.
think at this point they realize, or Jeff Daniels is the one that's like, because he sees the bite on the foot and he's like, that's a
Right.
spider bite. He starts to think something's going on. And of course, we were already introduced to maybe the most iconic character of the movie, John Goodman as Delbert.
Oh yeah.
He is one of the things I 100% remember the most from this movie as a kid. I did not remember how goofy he was, though. Like, I remember he was like goofy, but not to the point where, like, in every scene, he's wrong about everything.
Yeah, no,
He's
yeah,
always
right
wrong about something.
everything.
Like, he
And
literally is like looking for something under the toilet. The spider's right there. He misses it, and he goes, "Yeah, there's no spiders in this house."
right. Or like he can't hear termites or something like that in the wood. Like okay. Or when he meets the spider doctor,
Mhm.
nice to meet a fellow colleague.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
what? Totally
but
different field.
he's great in this movie. I love John Goodman, man.
Oh yeah.
He's so funny. So I really like his character as Delbert. So that's definitely one of the things I remember the most as a kid was that.
Yeah.
And now Jeff Daniels is the main doctor in the town. But that's when we really start to get into the detective side of this movie, and he starts to
Right.
kind of
'Cause-
realize, oh, something's going on. And I'm not sure how he just happens to come across the doctor's contact info on that piece of paper, or I guess he's like, let me. He says something to his wife, like he's one of the highly respected like spider people,
Right.
scientists in like the West Coast, but he just happens to be like the number one person on that list, coincidentally.
I believe that he probably just did his research, did some calls here and there, because now actually people are actually gonna be wanting to work with Jeff Daniels since he's the only one actually pursuing this investigation. Really, it makes sense that he could pull some strings and find out who he can contact. Now he really does think it's a spider bite.
And then this doctor finally comes to the town with his like associate guy named Chris. And this is
Right.
when the doctor realizes that, or the first person to get killed was this guy, this photographer who
Right.
he was with in Venezuela. And now he kind of realizes, like, oh,
This is partly my fault.
this is my fault. Exactly. There's some blood on my hands here. And I kind of forgot just how crazy they go with the spiders at the end of the movie.
I know, like you see spiders on the walls and everything, and they're like not moving. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I know they just stuck the spiders on there. But when they're coming out of like the grate or the sink or the electrical, like, okay, that kind of gets me.
I was brushing my teeth last night, and I was kind of like, you're
Looking
always kind of
around.
just like looking around.
I
So,
did too. I did too.
but now John Goodman finally has some heavy duty equipment. He's literally just like evaporating these spiders.
He's like straight up acid.
And then I kind of like how they come back with this, where Jeff Daniels falls through the floor because they make the reference earlier about how bad the wood is. So he falls to
Right.
the basement. He now realizes that the basement is where the queen spider is, and he finds her little sack or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and he has to kill that spider. And I like how he ultimately kills the spider. I'm trying to remember how the queen died, because there was that he kills that one, and then there's the main one.
I think he actually lit the queen on fire.
Okay, so is the queen the one he lit on fire and then shot with the nail gun thing?
The nail gun was the general, the original spider.
But that one was on fire because it jumps out of the fire and jumps at him and he shoots it.
Right. That's all the same spider.
Okay.
When they call it, yeah, that's the general.
No, he electrifies the queen in that little
Oh, that's
electric
right. Yeah,
box.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So he kind of hits the queen one, he hits this electrical box and fries it.
Right.
The king one comes out, sets it on fire,
And
comes
still
back.
goes on.
still goes, and then and he shoots it with this little nail gun thing that was introduced earlier in the
Right
movie, which I
through the
like how that comes
outside.
back. I like how he's throwing the wine at him, and like
Wait,
all this
no,
stuff
not
is
the
just coming
Chardonnay.
back. Not the Chardonnay. And then he finally destroys it. He gets out, and this movie kind of ends a little abruptly to me. So I just felt like he gets out of the cellar. His wife's there. I was expecting some sort of like, crane shot to see the house and everything, but no, it's just kind of like, just cuts to like exterior of San Francisco, and I felt like this kind of final scene was maybe like a reshoot. We just see Jeff Daniels and his wife. They're in their apartment drinking that wine finally, and they
the one
obviously
wine
moved
that survived.
the one wine that survived, which it then eventually gets knocked over because of the earthquake. They left that town. They got no doctor now.
Oh shit!
I'm kind of surprised at that ending. I thought maybe they would try to like give them some character development and be like, all right, we're gonna stick around and try to make it work. But I guess maybe the whole idea was they never were country people. That's the joke is, we left the city in the beginning and now we just left the country.
I know. I kind of see your point there that they could have just crane shot it out and leave it that way and run the credits.
Yeah, that totally would have worked. But they decided let's have them go back to San Francisco. And maybe someone thought like, oh, it'd be clever if like they go back to the big city and there's like an earthquake, and wherever you go, there's always going to be problems. I guess that's the idea.
Yeah.
Because if you live in the country, you're going to definitely have insect. The one thing that creeped me out is that one line the doctor said about the 1 acre and there's like millions or thousands or something of like insects or spiders.
Oh yeah.
That actually made me like, I was like, ooh, that was just like a movie thing.
Well, there was also like that fact that spiders actually you actually end up eating spiders in your sleep.
Oh yeah. God.
Yep.
Yeah.
When I heard that, I was like, no.
As bad as spiders are, not as bad as cockroaches. I hate cockroaches.
Oy.
Arachnophobia. Pretty good all around. I thought, it does it well. It's funny. This movie is listed as like a comedy for some reason, but it is funny. John Goodman is funny, and even Jeff Daniels had some good lines that were making me chuckle.
I mean, it's mostly the comic relief. It really is just John Goodman. That's it.
I don't know if you know this. I heard this recently. I guess they're doing a remake of this movie, so I don't know how far that's into development. I was trying to picture like what a remake would even be for a movie like this, if it would just all be like CGI spiders and just how kind of crappy that probably looked. We'll see what happens with that. Arachnophobia. Maybe we'll cover that in the future if it ever comes out. Maybe Jeff Daniels will come back and reprise his role. So as the good doctor. But
he's gonna be the old doctor. That's what's
yeah. Oh, you know what? One more thing I want to say before we fade to black. Did you notice all the weird fade to blacks in this movie?
I did notice that actually.
Yeah, you watched it on Vudu with me, right?
I watched it on DVD.
Oh, no. Oh, you watched it on DVD. Oh, so okay. Because I was wondering if it was like a Vudu thing where it was like, oh, maybe this was like ripped off of like a TV version somehow. Because there's weird fade to blacks that would be like something you see on TV. But okay, if it's on DVD, then that must have been the actual theatrical version then. Yeah, that threw me off for a loop. I was like, whoa, that's okay. Anyways, so it does not take away from me recommending this movie. I still think you should check it out. It definitely makes me, anytime my thick Italian hairs start acting up, I always think there's a spider on me. So yeah.
Arachnophobia, a good recommend. And please like, subscribe, comment. Let us know if you want us to review a specific movie. Cut, print, moving on.
I can't believe out of all those spiders, not one was the one that turns Peter Parker into Spider-Man.